Welcome to Flower of Life podcast. This is Carmen Fernandez. Today we're going to talk about consciousness, and my guest is Gabriel Lugo. Gabriel is an expert in plant medicine and the law of one, and he's a philosopher of the physical and metaphysical reality. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you again, Carmen.
You were here last week and you're here again, and I can't have enough of you.
I hope there is enough of me at some point.
Yes, so
Get boring.
With Gabriel, we're going to do some episodes. The idea is to have episodes every week, and we're going to talk about consciousness, manifestation, energy, spirituality. For the next weeks, I'm going to be in Spain for 3 weeks in August, so I don't know my availability for podcasting because my family, when I'm in Spain, they're very demanding. So I don't know how I can fit podcasting next month, but we'll have more episodes in September. And today we're going to talk about consciousness. What is consciousness, Gabriel?
You know, that's a good question. I think everybody has an idea of what consciousness is, especially now, right? Like we're seeing a lot of this, what they call the new age, which to me is just a rediscovery of ourselves. So I guess it depends on who you ask. You're going to get a different answer of what consciousness is. And it seems to me like consciousness is just an awareness, right? That's the best way we can describe it. When we look up for information about what consciousness is, nobody knows what it is. So it's one of those questions that has no answer. And it really is, I guess, the person's definition of what consciousness is that makes it up. So to me, the idea of consciousness, like I said, is a level of awareness that we seem to have. And starting up from the reductionist idea of science, consciousness is something that we humans have. Nobody else has, right? So yes. The universe is a dead body that randomly created consciousness. So all the beauty that we perceive in the world, all the perception of time, the recording of our ages, and everything that comes with consciousness, it seems to be a random effect in the universe. And that's what science tells us. So starting from there, we can ask, what is consciousness in general? And anything that is aware and it has a pattern of moving, then should be the same as consciousness. And we can get deeper into this, but just knowing that our perception is almost, our perception of consciousness through science is as much as saying in 300, 400 years ago that the earth was the center of the universe. That's what we're saying with consciousness. You think?
Yeah. Well, I think we're going through, like, in the history, we're going through different levels of consciousness, right? Like the human,
that is right.
Yeah. And now we're going through another, it seems like we're going through another kind of level of consciousness, right? With all these things that is happening now, more people are becoming more awake, more people are becoming more conscious. We're evolving, I think, as a human race, right? What do you think?
And that makes sense now that we saw the point of view of the reductionist science, right? Because they say that consciousness is something that happened in the human brain randomly and all of a sudden, and we have no idea if the rest of the universe is conscious or not. But when we go back to the levels of consciousness that we know in the sense of spirituality, we understand that the universe itself is alive because everything that's happening in our reality has a pattern of movement and ever more complex things arise from it. So even in the conventional point of view of science, we say that the universe started with a big bang, a big explosion that caused the movement of matter, and even let's stay with that for a second, because there's some at least coherence there.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Big Bang happened, nothing had order, everything was chaos. So over time, everybody agrees that there was more coherence happening with matter that formed the first atoms, the first stars, the first galaxies, and so on, all the way up to human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So what we see is a level of complexity rearranging itself ever more intricate. So we have more patterns in the universe. There is more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So we can agree with that.
Yeah.
If we can just name that consciousness in the universe, then we know that the universe is a conscious being that is creating more complexity as time goes on. And that leads me to what you were saying, that we seem to be going through different levels of consciousness. And right now, this explosion of awareness is just the next complexity of consciousness that we are arriving at. It's not like we earned it in the sense of the universe and how we created this body. It's just that the body basically created us into the point that we arrive at this new level of consciousness.
Yeah. And what do you think about, for people who are listening and they want to know how to expand their consciousness? What advice would you give to people who want to become more aware, raise their awareness?
Sure. So let's stay in touch with the picture that I was describing, and from there you can see the most fundamental view from anybody to just create the center of expansion in consciousness. And I'll explain myself. In the view that everything has been working in the universe to create ever more complexity, then we see that the same energy that created the Big Bang is creating us. It's not a random effect, because then we would say that everything in the universe is a random effect. But even those that are completely based on conventional science would agree that there are some laws. And those laws have been created by somebody that nobody agrees who it is. In theology, we assign it to a creator.
Mm-hmm.
In Buddhism, we assign it to ourselves, because we are the creator. And the point of seeing the universe this way, as the Buddhists will do, is to know that we are just a part of this universe, creating ever more variety of ourselves. From that point, we know that unity is inherently part of us. So whenever we see anything in our world, in our reality, it's about finding unity with everything. And when you see the universe this way, as an organism that is just increasing its complexity, it had no beginning and has no end, then we can see that we are part of a whole as opposed to separate, as we see. And in our society, mostly Western society, we have a sense of separation from the universe. That is the breaking point of our society right now. And most of the people who are struggling right now to accept themselves is because they keep seeing themselves divided. Mm-hmm. And divided from the universe itself. It's almost like we are a random error in the universe. Consciousness arose out of nothing. So going back to the belief of, it's okay. People can feel that they're divided and separated, but once you create the idea of separation, there is a fundamental flaw in how we perceive ourselves, because we think we're worthless, right? So there is no unity there. There's no love, and love is the driving force of everything we know in our reality. So if you can revert back, by any means, it doesn't have to be any sort of philosophy, but if you can revert from the division separation view of us to a more unified point of view of the universe, then we know for sure that we are everything that exists and everything that will ever be. And from there, consciousness just expands naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have experienced that like all my life. I've been like I felt separated because I think when we're born, it's like we feel like it's like a separation from our mother. We become a new entity in this world, and then we start to get installed beliefs and that we are separated from other people and from everything else, and then you evolve thinking that everything is separated, but you also have like, well, I'm talking about myself. I also had this desire to fit in, like especially when you're a teenager, that you're trying to figure yourself out, and then but you want to be part of the group, you want to be part of everything, but still you feel separated, and you grow up and still have this separation, feeling of separation. But then for me, how I become aware of this this concept that we're all one. It was with yoga, when I started practicing yoga and meditation and energy, also with energy healing. I practice some energy healing techniques, and then with energy, you can feel the energy of the other person, and then you become one with the other person energy. And that's a very beautiful feeling when you feel that you're one with the other person, and that if you're one with the other person, you can be one with everything else.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And um, see, everybody perceives unity in a different way. As you're saying this, I realize that I'm not very sensitive to that feeling of unity like you have experienced, and that is beautiful because it shows the diversity of how we can perceive unity. Right? You felt it, and I would say that everybody should find their own way to perceive that unity. And it starts with just the idea of what you want. What do you really want? It's a good question just to ask anybody who's listening right now. What do you really want? Do you like the idea of being separated from the world, from the planets, from the beauty of everything? Because once you conceive yourself as somebody who is individual, and it has its own egocentric view of the world, and everything is encapsulated in our brain. Um, Once you do that, you start feeling that there is some sense of alienation. And the question is, do you want to believe that, or do you want to believe that we all are united, at least in one sense? Because the concept of unity can be bizarre for a lot of people, because how can I be you if I am myself and I think and you can think or understand what I'm thinking? The concept of unity can be scary at some points, for people, but it doesn't have to be a concept that you live. It's a concept that you feel and inside. And that is answered by the question, what do you want to believe? There's no right or wrong. It's what you want to believe. And like you said, when you were a child, you start feeling this sense of separation, which again, it's by default a factor of this density of experience, the third density of consciousness, and that is part of our reality. It's totally fine, but our purpose here is to seek that inherent unity that we had at the Big Bang, and that we'll have at the end of our evolution as a spirit, if that makes sense.
Yes. So we came here from one, and then we'll, when we finish in this world, we'll go back to the one, right?
Yeah, and that is the cycle that the Hindus talk about, and many other belief systems, that we live in a revolving universe. You cannot have a big bang without a big crunch. You cannot have light without darkness. You can't have female without male. This is the duality of our perception of the universe. And it's because everything has to have an opposite equal to create the contrast by which we have an experience. So if there is a beginning, there should be an end. And the beginning is just the proliferation of energy. And the end is just the unity of energy. So it's like we go through, like coming out of a spray can, you know, it comes out and it sprays out throughout space, and then it comes in unity again. And that's our path in the most simplistic view we can have of the cycles. And once we get together, we crunch again and we go back again into another experience of reality.
Mm-hmm. It's like the sacred geometry when we see all these geometry symbols, how they're expanding and moving, you know, like, or even the flowers.
Yeah.
The flowers open and then they they close. It's like in the nature we can see the patterns, right?
That's right. And we can see that with I know for Western civilization, it's hard to digest the concept of death in being the end of one cycle, but that's all there is. It's we have the same is the beginning of our life, and then the end of our life is just the end of another cycle in this experience. But the energy is always there. Our consciousness is eternal. It's just everlasting. Nothing that gets destroyed. It's just our perception, our narrow perception of life in this human body that gets ended, and it goes back again. Like you said, it's a cycle. It's a simple cycle of life and death.
What are the benefits that you get from being more conscious person?
You see, it's the end of a struggle. It's the end of a internal struggle that we have, and by no means I want to come out like I'm fully conscious. It's being conscious and expanding your consciousness is a tool that you use for everything that you use in your life. So the biggest struggle was for me to realize first that nothing matters in this world other than your experience. Your experience is all that you're here for. Because once you know that consciousness is an ever evolving factor of your spiritual growth, once you know that, you want to cherish whatever it is that means to be conscious. And with that comes what we explain, which is unity. And in unity, we need to find the end of struggle, not only with other people, but with ourselves. So that is the biggest benefit that I see, is that first you end the conflict, or start ending the conflict that you may have with your boss, with your children, with your parents, and so on, other humans, which are other selves, because they are you. And that is huge in and of itself. But the biggest thing is yourself. You stop struggling with knowing who you are, what's your purpose, and what are you here for. You already know that you're here for a conscious process of growth. And that, I mean, everybody's individual. Everybody's going to see the sunrise different than I do. But as long as we see the sunrise as being part of a cycle again, then our life just improves naturally. And I think that's just the beauty that everybody finds in their own way when they start understanding more what spirituality truly is for themselves, and how they can become more conscious in it.
I think also the benefit from being more conscious is that you start to see things from a different perspective, right? Instead of being focused on the story, you see that from a different perspective, and you see kind of the patterns that are playing. And then you can work on those patterns to make your life better, right?
That's right. You get to live in other, and I would love to hear how you have experienced this, because this is what to me is try to see the world from somebody else's point of view, and at the same time, when you do that, you can see yourself from somebody else's perspective. You can understand more about yourself. This is what the Essenes called the mirrors of the human relationship, is that you use others people perspective to uh, just validate who you are or challenge who you are, as opposed to reject the view of others. So the more, like you said, the more you can see yourself from others' perspective and see the life of other people and put yourself in those positions, that also increases your ability to just perceive the world in general. But I would love to know how does that work for you, as being that you're a lot more intuitive in that line of attention?
Well, what I before being before I got into this spirituality and self-development, I was very focused on the story of the things, what happened. Like I was kind of a victim of my life, right? And then when I started to become more aware, and I started to see that the things that happen is not is I created them. So I was not a victim anymore. I was more like I realized that I was the creator of my reality. And then when I see what is happening, I see, oh, okay, well, how I created this. And usually those are created by your beliefs, and your beliefs, the beliefs that you have make you behave in different ways and create thoughts. And those thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, then you, by the things that are happening, you learn about yourself, about your beliefs, your thoughts that you create, your behaviors, and that's how you create your reality. So that's how I started to see my life from a different perspective. So instead of being a victim and being feeling that I didn't have the power to change the things that happen, I became more responsible for my life, and I saw my life from a different perspective, becoming more aware of who I am and how I create my life. And then now I know I'm in a process of continuous improvement. But that helped me that gave me the power to, the power of awareness is the power to create your life, and the power to understand life from a different perspective that is more empowering than just being a victim of what is happening and the situation that is, because there are things that you cannot change, there are things that you cannot control, but you can control yourself. And sometimes we want to control things that are out of our control. So it's also about, for me, it's also about being, it's about accepting what I can control and what I cannot control, and let it go. What I cannot control, let it go, and just focus on myself. And sometimes just by changing what I can control over, then other things change. Like, for example, my relationships with people. If I don't like how some people treat me, I think, why this person is treating me this way? Is also I know that is some kind of energy that resonates with this person to react in that way. So then I see what is that part of me that is creating that reaction in the other person. And then when I change that in myself, then I don't get that reaction from the other person.
That's beautiful. And you spoke, I think the biggest word that just comes out of that is the victim. Mm-hmm. Because when there is a victim, there's a culprit, somebody who is guilty of making you be that. So that takes responsibility out of you. You already externalize your problem. You said, this is not my problem, it's somebody else's, and I can't control it. So when you do that, you take away responsibility. But even beyond that, you see, like, the beauty that I see in that And it's the same thing you said, but this is my point of view, is that you stop living in the past and stop trying to predict the future, right? Because what you're doing when the victim goes away is that the past has no influence in you. You are responsible for your present. You're more in the now. And that is fundamentally one of the biggest pitfalls that we get into as humans, is to start living or spending more of our energy in the past by having regrets or having some sort of connection to the past, and or worrying too much about the future, which is not here. And in our reality, there is no past and there is no future. There is no state of being in the past or the future. There is the eternal moments. And when you stop living in those and you take away those words, like you said, you're no longer a victim, you take responsibility, you are much more present. And the future remains uncertain because it's supposed to be a surprise. It's supposed to be something new. And the more you take responsibility for anything that happens, and you know that everything is happening to you because you are the protagonist of this life, without being superior than anybody else. You're not the protagonist of the whole universe. You're just being a protagonist of your own life. And from there, you take charge, and anything that happens, you just accept it and bless it. So the roller coaster, the emotional roller coaster that I call, comes to a streamline. It becomes more steady and harmonious, which is what everybody should be seeking right now: harmony.
Yes, yes. And I love when you said the protagonist. That reminds me of something that a friend said, that you're the star of your own movie. And you can create the movie that you want. If you want to create a drama movie, you can create a drama movie. If you want to create a scary movie, that will be a scary movie. But it's better to have a fun movie, you know, when you have fun and adventure and or a love movie or a romantic movie, or you can create the movie that you want for yourself. You're the star, and if you see life this way, it's more fun than if you see life as that you're a victim of whatever is happening around you.
Yeah. And I'm sure that has to do with the condition that we've had all our lives. It depends. And you can see people like this. You can see people that have been conditioned to be the sufferers, the martyrs, you know. Others are conditioned to be the heroes.
Yes.
They are the heroes. And there's no right or wrong, you know, in anything. I think it just adds to the complexity of the perception of life that we have. And I'm just ever grateful for anybody that has a different point of view as a protagonist themselves. So I think that's the beauty of diversity in terms of humans. And it comes from there, from our sense of protagonist.
Yes, yeah. It's good to have like variety. Not everybody is the same, and we need to respect each other for what they are and where they are in the journey, because everybody is in their own journey. They have their own they're at their own pace, and everybody should be respected for what they are.
That's right. They're all gods in their own sense, and they're creating their own reality.
Yes.
And again, there's nothing right or wrong with that. It's just the beauty of how we should see everybody as a different iteration of God, Source, the creator, and we ourselves as part of it. And everybody's equal. Everybody is a brother and a sister. And it's a beauty to see that they're all investing their energy into creating that version of God here on earth. And that's through their perception of reality and their own level of consciousness at the time. And it creates such a wonderful experience for all of us. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, everybody is making a difference in other people's life. Everybody.
That's right.
Because everybody is part of the same, and so everybody is making an impact on other people's life, even if they are aware of not.
Yeah, they're all working in unison to create this massive experience for all of us to go through. And the more, this is one thing that I would love to just leave, for the audience, is that thanks to the uniqueness of everybody and this variety of people, is that we have all kinds of experience. Because if we had, say, take the perfect world for anybody, which is blissful and full of joy and beautiful, there would be no growth. There would be no contrast for us to live a strong experience by which we accelerate our process. The more diversity there is, the more we can reflect on the different mirrors that they all represent for us, and the more it contrasts for us to be ourselves, and we can view the world differently and expand our own essence of who we are. Because in the other world, you cannot be the best or the worst, because everybody is the same. Everybody's living a beautiful metaphysical experience. So that's something that we need to cherish here. The more evil that people see in the world, the better it is, for us to reflect upon it. So that goes and trickles down to every type of personality that anybody's living. So to me, it's a beautiful view of the world that we should explore a lot more.
Yes, we should focus more on that than the other stuff.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Gabriel.
No, thank you. This was beautiful.
It was a pleasure having you here again. So for listeners, you can find Gabriel on his website, GaiaAweekend.com. And he's also in Facebook and Instagram. And for more episodes, you can go to our website, floweroflifepodcast.com.